Well, U.S. officials are calling for caution, despite Iran and Russia's upbeat take on the latest round of nuclear talks in Vienna.
There may have been some modest progress, but it is in some ways too soon to say how substantive that progress may have been. At a minimum, any progress, we believe, is falling short of Iran's accelerating nuclear steps and is far too slow.
General Jack Keane is a Fox News Senior Strategic Analyst. He's a retired four-star general. He joins me this morning. General, thank you as ever for coming on and for sharing your expertise. Look, this is the 8th round of talks, and it comes at a time when Iran is enriching its uranium to 60%. It continues to, spread its nefarious activities across the Middle East. It's trying to renegotiate things that were agreed just in the last round of the talks. How long does the administration go on trying to reach a deal here, or should they cut and break?
Well, I actually think the administration is more anxious to make this deal than the Iranians are, and that's part of the problem. That's what we had back in 2014 and 2015 when the original deal was made, and why it's been so heavily criticized, because it was just so anxious to make a deal at any cost. And I think that's kind of where we are now. I mean, we have the Iranians, as you mentioned, enriching uranium up to 60%. It's supposed to be under 4% in accordance with the original deal. And they're stockpiling highly enriched uranium somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 11 times greater than what the original deal stipulated. So I think what the United States is trying to do is get them back to the original deal as much as possible, and the Iranians are likely not going to budge very much. What are the Iranians looking for here? One thing and one thing only: remove all the sanctions, and that's what's on the table for them. So that's kind of where we are going into this thing. I really think it's a lost opportunity, though, Benjamin. Biden administration had a tendency to reject everything that Trump people had done. And I thought here, with the maximum pressure campaign and the sanctions on the Iranians, it was having a significant impact on the economy. Yes, they had not come back to the negotiating table, but they were waiting to see if Trump was going to be reelected or not. And the second thing is the killing of Qasem Soleimani in January 2020 rocked the Iranians and put them back on their heels. And we had leverage there with our Gulf allies and the Abraham Accords that were taking place in negotiations with the Israelis. It was the strongest position the United States had been in some time in the Middle East. And the administration came in and walked away from all of what I just said. And that was really unfortunate. We don't have a strong hand to play in these negotiations, to be frank about it.
General, I want to get your views on another topic. Russia, of course, a big issue at the moment. And now we're hearing from President Biden that he's not ruling out a meeting with Vladimir Putin. And what exactly does that say? What message does that send, if indeed it goes ahead, that he would be willing to meet with a leader who has started to threaten aggressive actions against Ukraine? Doesn't it just send a message that everyone who might do that is going to get a seat at the table with America? And I want to play you a quick soundbite. Here is President Biden refusing to deny he may meet with Putin.
Hang on one second.
When's the meeting with Putin on January the 10th?
Hang on one second, guys.
What do you make of that, General?
Well, I'm more concerned about where are we policy-wise dealing with Putin, as opposed to whether there's actually a face-to-face or a virtual meeting between the two leaders. I mean, Putin finally has declared what he's interested in. He's put it in writing. He's handed it to the United States. He wants a treaty. He wants an agreement with the United States that there'll be a moratorium on any NATO expansion whatsoever from this date forward. He wants to make certain that there's no arms or lethal aid provided to Ukraine. He also doesn't want the NATO bases that are in Eastern Europe. He doesn't want those bases strengthened with any more military capability. And the last thing is, it's pretty rich. He doesn't want NATO to deploy any intermediate nuclear weapons. Remember, it was his deployment of the intermediate nuclear weapons that forced the United States to come out of the INF Treaty. So that's what is what he's seeking. It's all about NATO expansion. And we've just got to play our cards here. I mean, We cannot fold on any of these issues. We can agree with Putin to have annual security arrangements, discussions about what is taking place to make certain that we're not misinterpreting what's taking place. But in terms of countries in Europe deciding who they want to be politically and military aligned with, that's up to those countries. It's not up to Mr. Putin.
Yeah, well, Putin seems to be making demands that NATO surely just simply cannot give into. General Keane, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it. Take care and Happy New Year.
Yeah, same to you, Benjamin. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.